Welcome, everyone, to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Reclaim Your Empathic Power, the 7-week journey to discover subtle energy body practices to release energetic ties and resolve life patterns. I'm Lisa Bonise, and I'm really looking forward to this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Desda Zuckerman and address questions about her upcoming 7-week course, Reclaim Your Empathic Power, which begins Wednesday, March 20th. A little later, I'll explain how you can participate in the course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Desda Zuckerman is the author of Your Sacred Anatomy, an owner's guide to the human energy structure. And what began as a personal quest for understanding blossomed into a comprehensive mapping of human energy anatomy and its precise application. This paradigm-shifting discovery has been distilled into conscious, intelligence, and intentional healing modality. And for the last 30 years, Desda has taught classes, trained practitioners, and led healing sessions with thousands of clients. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Desda to the call. Welcome, Desda. It's so great to talk to you today.
Hi, Lisa. I'm so glad to be with you again. It's lovely to be back here at the Shift Network.
Well, it's so great to have you. I'm so looking forward to our conversation because you've got so much fascinating stuff to share. And we have the rest of our time together, an entire hour for our viewers to ask their questions as we prepare for the course. Once again, that's called Reclaim Your Empathic Power, and it begins Wednesday, March 20th. And if you want to check out the website, learn more about the 7-week course, you can visit yourempathicpower.com to see the full description. So, Desda, do you want to tell us just a little bit about the course before we get started?
Well, I'm really excited to be offering something that is really geared towards sensitives, empaths, intuitives, psychics, because that's who I am. And my journey has really been trying to figure out how to be in this world without losing my integrity as an energy structure. And so I've created a class that has healing segments and information segments and learning segments to enable every student who takes the class to come away from it with a strong sense that the life issue that was blocking them from having access to balanced and even empathic powers, to full-on intuitive knowingness, and to a sense that their intuition, their clarity of psychic inspiration actually can take root in their lives. So many psychics and intuitives and empaths really struggle with, is this what so, or am I making it up? And one of those things comes from life patterns that are put in place to doubt yourself, to call into question whether or not what it is you're doing, thinking, feeling, knowing is accurate and on the money and can be a benefit. So we're going to work through the layers of the sacred anatomy to heal life patterns that have to do with this. We're also going to work with a thing called an obscuration, which is at the edge of the sacred anatomy, way out from your physical body, 20 feet on either side, front, back, left, right, up, down. And that obscuration is thick like tar, and it can coat a large portion of the edge of the subtle anatomy and do a bunch of stuff. But it's primarily about hiding, not being seen, about flying under the radar, about not letting your sensitivities overload you, overwhelm you, and somehow run your life. But the truth is, your hiding is running your life. So that's one we're going to deal with. And then the third healing piece that I'm going to do that I think will be so helpful to people is called a soul path congestion. And we're going to work with the 13 chakras that I've mapped in my 50 years of odyssey of mapping the sacred anatomy that I see around people. And the 13 chakras have incoming soul pathways each one of them, and outgoing chakra streams. And those soul pathways can tend to become congested, blocking and stopping the energy that feeds and fuels the relationship of the inner sacred with the outer expression and the fuel that drives our structure. So you need to have really good clarity about your fuel and what is driving you, what is bringing you into focus if you are an empath. So all three of these pieces I was inspired to bring them together because I thought this could really be helpful for people who have, stood in the same shoes that I've stood in.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much. And thank you for offering this class. I've already signed up for it myself, so I'm looking forward to it. But for those of you who are watching, let's go ahead and do some questions. If you've got a question for Desda, go ahead and type it in, and I'll be happy to read it out loud. And in the meantime, we've got a lot of questions waiting already. This is a good place to start. Standy wants to know, is this course a good place to start for someone who's new to all of this, or do you recommend an alternative starting point?
Oh, no, I think this is a great starting point because really most people come to somebody like me, a person who does subtle energy healing, with a whole set of fears about being sensitive. It just seems to be the way it goes. And this class is like getting a giant 7-week healing with me, with also information and tips and a whole program at the end that's like a self-care routine. So this will start you on a really good foot for studying subtle energy healing. Good question.
Just the first of many. I've got a question here from there's no name, so an anonymous question. They want to know, how do you deal with isolation and loneliness out of the safety behaviors that have been taken too far?
Isolation and loneliness out of the safety behaviors that have been taken too far. So I'm going to have to make an assumption because that's not exactly clear. So when someone says safety behaviors that have been taken too far, I would assume that what they're meaning is that they have done things like massive kinds of protection, and maybe it's gone over the edge and they're so protected they're actually hidden. Well, why do you think I decided to do obscurations? Because truthfully, that's one of the things that is most common. Safety behaviors run amok. The other things that people do all the time is they layer protection over themselves. One layer after another layer, after another layer, after another layer. And those protections can build up over time and actually cause neurological issues. I wouldn't say that, except I've seen it enough and enough times where I see it as a really serious condition. And I actually start many sessions with sensitives who've had lots and lots of energy work with, let's take down all your protections and all those things that essentially have run amok and gone too far. So there you go. I think this is a good place to begin.
Yeah, thank you. I think your interpretation of the question was spot on. That seemed to be what the person was asking. And this relates to another question here. A couple of people are asking about, it's sort of a cliche that you're supposed to put a bubble of pink light around you. How effective is that, really? That's one of those things that we've all heard, just that pink bubble.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't really know where that came from or whose idea or inspiration that was. And I would not want to cast aspersions on any ancestor in the healing world. But I find that kind of thing to be completely useless. So I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but it's pink bubble. won't do anything for you.
Well, that's certainly been my experience. So thank you for validating that anyway. Yeah. We've got a question here from Crystal who says, what does it mean if when you first meet someone, you actually see a cord or a rope connected to the two of you?
Wow. Crystal, that is a fantastic question. And I would think that it might mean that you have past life karma with that person, where you were corded to them. So that would be a situation where one person was dominant over the other. And you see this in situations where you have a guru and a chela, which is a teacher and a student. Or it can happen in master-slave situations. It can happen in king and serf situations. And it can happen in husband and wife situations where one or the other of the partners has been really dominant and courted each other. Courting is never good unless you have given specific permission to a guru to experience a specific kind of courting. And then you've really devoted your life to that person and you're okay with their judgment. In any other case, it's not a healthy thing. And if you see that with someone, I would beat cleats right away to your nearest conscious intelligence practitioner to have that cord removed. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. Here's a somewhat related question. This is from Angel, who wants to know how to disconnect the energy of someone who doesn't want to disconnect from you and continues to tap in no matter what boundaries you put up.
Well, that's a situation where you have someone essentially attacking you, and that's a very unpleasant situation. And there's a lot of different ways to deal with that, and it can depend on who that person is, on what the karma is with that person. So sometimes a resolution of the karma, really talking out what's gone down between the two people, is really important. And the other thing is that if it's just something that's continued on, like this is the kind of thing you can often see with like an ex-husband or ex-wife. And you can see this long-standing relationship continuing in an unhealthy way. Every time the person thinks about the other person with a negative thought, they kind of activate each other. So this is why I teach so many self-care practices, because it's important, if you're sensitive and if you're feeling things like this, Angel, to learn as many good, solid self-care practices that are not based in superstition, but that are truly based in something that's been proven and researched, like the sacred anatomy, 50 years of research. So everything we do, we've tried and tried and tried. I've had over 10,000 sessions. And in those sessions, I've seen every disaster. So it's really taught me a lot. And that's the kind of practitioner you want to find, somebody who can help you with this, that is really grounded in experience and doesn't have a lot of occult kind of beliefs about these kinds of things, but is just basic and down to earth.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And you bring up an interesting point about this being down to earth as opposed to occult or superstitious. In this next question, borders on that, but I understand the question in general. Again, anonymous. It says, how do you deal with energetic and psychic vampires? I know a lot of people sort of bristle at that term, but you know what they're saying, right?
Yes, I do. I know exactly what they're talking about. What they're talking about is enmeshment. What they're talking about is being a victim. And they have cast themselves as a victim of another person who is then attacking them. And they are in a compatible resonance with an attack and a recipient of the attack. In other words, I am making an agreement to be a victim here, and the other person is making an agreement to enmesh or aggress. So there's a lot of things that you can do about this, but that's actually kind of a different class. And one I'd really be interested in teaching for the Shift Network next time around. But dealing with these kinds of things, attacking entities, people we call vampires, excessive enmeshment, these kinds of things happen because your electromagnetic field, which is the electromagnetic energy right around your physical body, is literally making itself available. So if you can pull your electromagnetic field into about 2 feet around your physical body, and you want to pull it in from up and down, left and right, if you pull that field in front and back too, you can at least have a sense that you're not then reaching out to be involved in a reciprocal vampiric relationship. You know, it's incredibly important that sensitive people realize they do not have to be victims.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, and speaking of enmeshment, let's go on to a question here from Nikki, who says, I was wondering if you could talk about enmeshment with family members. I feel so enmeshed, like I don't even exist. However, I sometimes see some of my family members behave or feel like I used to. I just feel empathy and oftentimes controlled or intentionally invaded by them.
Yeah, that's that's kind of the lament of the sensitive, isn't it? We feel like it's all too much, like people are all around us. That's why this class that's coming up will really be a helpful one for you, because you can look at that particular issue. There's going to be an issue that runs through all the classes, one single issue. So for you, Nikki, it would be, I am enmeshing with everybody all around me, my family especially. I feel victimized by this, and I don't really know how to stop it. And what you're saying is, I don't know where in me I am holding the need to do this. So you could approach this as a thread or a larger issue that would run through the 3 healings we're going to do, that would in fact separate and sever that need from 3 different systems in your sacred anatomy. Now there's 7 systems, but in the time that we have allotted to us, 3 systems is what we've chosen to work with. And I chose 3 very distinct systems that will give you kind of the biggest bang for your buck of a full healing in relationship to your particular issue. So, Nikki, I would really urge you to sign up for this class and come and have an experience of healing this issue once and for all.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, on that topic, let's we're getting great segues here. I got a question here from Marcia, who says, for my focused problem, do I pick a physical symptom or can I choose the whole underlying problem?
Ooh, go for the underlying problem. Because the physical symptom is just a part of it. The physical symptom it's really just representative of what's really happening in the larger subtle anatomy. So go for the bigger piece. You're looking for that larger issue, and you will find posted shortly on the class page a video that will tell you how to find your larger issue and focus your healing work on your particular problem. So great question. Thank you.
Okay, let me just get some clarity here, because I know that the course itself will be, as you're talking about, everybody will pick something specifically that they want to work on throughout the course. But I'm wondering if after they've done that, because they'll be able to keep the recordings, will they be able to then choose another thing that they want to work on and use the same process and just continue to work on their stuff? Or is this maybe a one-time thing?
Well, because the thing is recorded, you should be able to go through again, play it again for another big issue, and go through the exact same pieces again. And, there's value in that. There's always value in repeating things. Even doing the same thing over is valuable, because you could approach it from a slightly different way, and perhaps in doing it the first time, you learn more even about who you are, and you approach it from a bigger perspective, which is an awesome thing. So yeah, there'll be a way people can apply the healing to another issue later. But we will use one issue throughout because we are really interested in ending it, stopping that issue, getting rid of that block, that attachment and that orientation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. We've got a question here from Barbara, and I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this. Barbara says, I'm very sensitive to electronics like the computer, TV, microwave. I feel depleted with too much exposure. I feel as if I'm wired. How do you deal with issues like this?
Well, that's an electromagnetic field issue. And your electromagnetic field is, again, around you 2 to 4 feet out from your physical body. It is not the same as the sacred anatomy. It is a system within the subtle anatomy. And your electromagnetic field can be completely shot from tons and tons and tons of electromagnetic impulses and hits. So really what I would urge you to do is to seek out a conscious intelligence practitioner who I've trained, or to stay tuned to the Shift Network for my next class, which I think may be about electromagnetic stuff. So it's exciting to think about these things. Or you can go to my website and look up what I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Elise says, what would be the best way to explain this kind of thing to my grandson who's 11? I feel like he's like me, empathic, as he's also very sensitive.
Wow. When you have one of these special kids, the thing you most want to do is really let them know that they're okay. That this is something that makes them special and unique, and that it can really inform their life. So, well, the way that I talk to my own daughter is we just treated it like it was every day, garden variety. Like, not like everybody could do it, but like in our life, in our home, in our family, this is the way people are. We're sensitive to each other. We feel each other's energy, and we react and respond. When one person is sad, the other person can feel the sadness. So knowing if it's your sadness or someone else's sadness helps you to begin to learn where you end and where they begin. And that's the very first thing. I have a procedure that I've developed called the edge practice that I teach. And that is something that any sensitive should know. And it's something that's very exciting because it allows the entire sacred anatomy to be pressed into service. And you're never too young to learn that practice. There's 5 steps to it. It's easy peasy. And it's something that we can all use. So seek out teachers that know how to talk to kids, that aren't too highfalutin, that aren't too impressed with themselves, that have a good sense of humor, and that can embrace the child's wonder as well as their concerns as legitimate. And that's the most important advice I can give you. But never, ever, 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 ever think that you should shy away from this or that you should wait until the kid's older. Help them stay open. I mean, when little kids are open, you want to encourage them to stay open. It's one of the things that happened to me. I was open and I stayed open. Most kids close between 4 and 7 years old sometime. They shut down. And it's because they're trying to be rational, logical, be good, get the spelling test right. So they're trying to line up and be the way their parents want them to be. So if you could include into that dialogue, into that conversation, the fact that the empathic nature should be cultivated, should be healed, and should be allowed, then you don't end up 40 years later with needing a bunch of healing so you can just trust yourself.
Good point. Thank you. We've got another anonymous question here that says, I have to sleep after being around people or going out shopping. What's that about? Is there a way to control it?
Yeah, there certainly is. Um, Part of what you're doing when you go out shopping, I'm betting, I don't know for sure because you didn't give me your name. So I'm just tuning into the energy of your question. And what I get is that most likely what you're doing is a thing called churning, which is you're bringing everything in the environment into your subtle anatomy. You're martyring yourself for the greater good. You're purifying Costco or Target or being around people at a concert or in a hotel lobby, wherever. It's not a healthy practice. You definitely need to learn how to not do that, baby. Thanks for the question, though.
All right, great. Well, if you're just joining us, we're here with Desda Zuckerman learning about her upcoming course. It's called Reclaim Your Empathic Power, and it begins on Wednesday, March 20th. And you can log on to yourempathicpower.com for all the details and to register. And we have plenty more questions coming up here. Let's see. Let's go to this one. Is another anonymous question. It says, do you think that there are people who are soulless, sort of a dark hole? After reviewing your seminar last week, your conversation with Stephen Dinan, I put a number of events and relationships and my responses to some of these people and wondered if my sense of profound emptiness around them was due to something like that.
There's nobody alive and in a body who is soulless. Even the most horrible people, the truly most obnoxious of our species, still have a soul. Everybody has a soul. You might be numb from your experience of living. You might be hurt inside, and you might need healing. Take my class. Have an experience of letting go some of those stops and blocks, because everybody has a soul, and there's nobody who's a black hole, and there's nobody who, no matter how much evil they're participating in, they still have a soul. The universe is wide, and there's all kinds of definitions of what is a soul and what is right and what is good, of what is evil and what is perfect, divine peace. So you don't have a soulless experience. You have a soul. Everyone does. So what is a soul? Let's talk about that. That's kind of an interesting idea. So a soul is that which is the expression of your co-creative dynamic with the source of all life. So creation, or source, if you will, all, totality, has a way of splintering out and creating individuated, small, connected energetics. These are all part of divine source. So everything and everyone, from the largest planet in our solar system to the smallest ant crawling on the ground, has a fragment of the source, a fragment of all the spark of creation, if you will. That spark of creation has a divinity in my heart and mind, but it doesn't have to. But I call that the soul. And our sacred anatomy is made of our individuated soul. So I've never, in all the years of my life, and I'm getting up there, never seen or met anybody who didn't have a soul. And I used to play rock and roll for big crowds. So I saw people at their worst during the 80s. And they still had souls, even in Silicon Valley. Anyway.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yes, they all have souls.
Okay, we've got a question here from Kathleen. And again, this is a frequently asked question, a few different people asking a similar one. Kathleen says, how do I go into a room and give an acupuncture session as an empath and not take it on? So how do you work as a healer without sucking up your client's stuff?
Well, you really need this practice I call the edge practice to be completely efficient and effective. But what I can tell you right now is you need to stop interacting and connecting with your electromagnetic field. In a lot of acupuncture traditions, and I'm familiar with many of them, there's a training that is used where you're essentially extending your energy into the needle and through and into the person's body. And that's what activates their meridian. Don't do this. Just use the needle. Just use the consciousness of the divine source of all nature, of what is so, and allow the stimulus of the needle to be enough. You do not have to give away who you are to support and help other people. Healing is a calling, and it's a great gift to be able to feel that calling and know that you're pulled towards being of service your life long. So healers are people who like techniques and skills, and they feel good when they have them. So I invite you to come look at my website or check out my work, because I teach this edge practice, which is it's the ticket. I also have a whole bunch of people who are teaching for me that, or with me. It's teaching a class called Illuminated Body. And that's exactly what we do with that class, is teach healers. It's literally for healers. We teach healers how to function without becoming enmeshed and engaged with their clients. So there you go.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you.
There's a lot of requests for this kind of stuff. I'm kind of amazed at how many.
Yeah, it's a big subject. I hear a lot of questions like this in my work. So yeah, it's a big question. Let's go to a question here this is from Edith, who says, what can you do when you're ill and weakened and feel negative, harmful energies around, but don't have the strength to protect yourself anymore from it?
Well, one of the best techniques that I can offer to empaths is just sleep when you're tired. A lot of times empaths get really wound up and they can't go to sleep. They're processing, they're analyzing, they're just vibrating from their experience of connection with other people. And it's really important for empaths to get enough sleep. It's also really important for empaths and intuitives to not wear the same clothes every day. You've got to wash your clothing. You've got to take it off, everything, and wash it. And you've got to own enough jackets and stuff where you can switch them out. It's really important to not revamp and reuse pants or shirts from day to day, because they pick up toxicity and you outgas energetic. So you outgas your emotional upsets, you outgas your confusion, you outgas your anger, or whatever you're feeling. And that energy will go into your clothes. In fact, it's actually a great idea to take a salt and soda bath after working or being in an environment like what you described in the question. So I would urge you to take a salt and soda bath, baking soda and sea salt. This is an Edgar Cayce remedy. It's not something I made up. And it's been around for a really long time. My grandmother used it. And what you do is you just take equal parts of salt and equal parts of soda, and you dump them in a nice hot bath and stir it around and jump in. And just make sure you get your head wet and flick hot water with the salt and soda over your head. And then get out, rinse off, because you don't want a salt and soda film on your body, and get in bed and just let the day go. So that's a very old technique that you can use. Boy, there are so many great techniques. One of them also that, I mean, a lot of people do this and they know about this, but they don't really put these together. So one of them is washing your hands. Like, I know we wash our hands, but washing your hands after an encounter. So let's say you go into a restaurant and you have an unpleasant experience with the waiter. Get up, go to the bathroom, wash your hands. And as you're doing it, intentionally release the experience and allow the energy of the conflict or the discussion or the whatever it was to go straight down the drain. The water doesn't mind, and the sewage system will absorb it. So that's another thing you can do. I'll give you one more thing that's really helpful, and that is clear up outstanding issues with anybody. So as a sensitive, it's extraordinarily important that if you have something hanging out with somebody, that you close the loop as fast as possible. Those of us who are really sensitive tend to be conflict averse. We like to hide out from, a discussion that might be a little unpleasant. But it's extremely important to have a straightforward, calm conversation with someone about something that you feel you're upset or anguished about, because that is clearing the clutter and debris of your life. It's extremely important. Excuse me. So I would offer that.
Okay, thank you. Well, here's a follow-up question that just came in. You're talking about changing your clothes and et cetera. Maggie wants to know, what about my bed? When I have a bad dream, I still feel it the next night when I go to bed. I can't change the sheets every day, so what can I do?
Well, there's a couple of things. When you have a bad dream, you might consider changing the sheets. But before you do, take, it depends on what you've got in your house. You can take a rolling pin or a baseball bat and swing it at the bed, hit the bed with it. You can take one of those wiffle things, and hit it. Or you can just take a couple of coat hangers and hit it. You can take your fists and pound the bed. And what you're doing is you're breaking up the electromagnetic signature that has formed on the bed and is sort of holding the frequency of your upset and your night terror. So if you can do that, you still should change the sheets. So I would always urge you to change the sheets. If you have a really bad dream, it's going to work out better to change the sheets. Now, if every single night you're having a bad dream, you need some healing work, and that's a significant symptom of something's not right. And you need support and healing and health. And check out my website for that.
Okay, great, thanks. Chris wants to know, is it safe to give white light to a circle of 50 people who aren't aware that you're doing it?
Okay, let's have this conversation. No. And here's why. Have you ever watched, what was that name of that movie, Amityville Horror or something? And the woman comes in and clears the house. And she's saying, go into the light. Remember the little girl? And she's yelling, go into the light. That's because where we go when we die is into the white light. Please don't be white lighting people. If you're going to do it, it's a matter of cleansing. And then you follow it immediately with a color like the beautiful rose red. If you want to use that, that's fine. Or gold. But here's another thing, and this gets into the ethics of subtle energy work. Do you know when you're doing something like that, it's extraordinarily invasive? 50 people who don't know you, who didn't give you permission to work on them? I would be horrified if I found out somebody was sending me white light. In fact, I think I'd be angry because I know how powerful this stuff is. And I know that the white light can do amazing stuff for cleansing. But it has to be done correctly. And the first thing that you need to do if you're going to do beneficial work for people is to ask permission. And I'm not talking about the higher self permission slip where you send in your order to their higher self and then egocentrically say, oh, I meant to clear the entire state of California. No, you're not. You don't have permission because somebody's higher self said, well, okay. It's got to be a verbal okay from either the person, their guardian, if they're incapacitated, or the parent of a young child, anyone under the age of 16. Other than that, it's a may I work on you question. That's the deal. So white light is not good unless it's followed by a color, because it's a cleansing energy and you want to replenish immediately after. And you do not have permission to work on large groups of people unless you ask them. You also don't have permission to pray with an agenda. In other words, I pray that you have my beliefs, or I pray that your soul is saved or changed or transformed or fixed. That is called manipulation, and that is actually occult. So don't be doing that either. So these are the ways that I'm a little bit different from some of the other people that you might have heard. So I ask forgiveness if I've offended anyone. And I hope that what I've told you can be of help.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, looking at the clock, we have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I think it's a good time to talk about the course a little. I'd like to give a few details. Again, it's called Reclaim Your Empathic Power. And this is going to be, in case you haven't noticed, a fascinating 7-week journey under Desda's expert guidance where you'll experience guided energy clearings that go far beyond your body and the chakras and reveal the guiding wisdom within your own energy structure. And the 7-week course takes place on Wednesdays at noon Pacific, starting Wednesday, March 20th. And if you can't join us live, that's fine. You won't miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until April 3rd in this case, to make sure that this is a great fit. We want you to be happy. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Reclaim Your Empathic Power bonus collection. First, you'll receive an audio recording from Desda of a reading from her book, Your Sacred Anatomy. And next, you'll get a PDF teaching from Desda called Insights Meditation Journal. Then you'll receive a video teaching from Desda entitled The Correct and Ethical Way to Benefit from Affirmations. And you'll also receive another video teaching from Desda, and this one's called The Importance of a Spiritual Practice. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Thursday, March 7th, you'll receive an extra bonus, and that's another PDF teaching from Desda. This one's entitled The 7 Subtle Systems of Your Sacred Anatomy. So before we get back into questions, Desda, what are you most looking forward to in your upcoming course?
Wow. I think, what I'm looking for, is to bring this work that I've been honing and crafting for close to 50 years now into a wider audience and to a larger group of people. So that's, kind of a basic desire. But more than that, really what I'm looking to see happen is miraculous healings for people. Because as they begin to become awake to the power of their subtle anatomy, they begin to touch their soul's composite knowledge. Everything that this powerful part of themselves has experienced from lifetime to lifetime. And all the ways that they are held and cared for by the universe start to become clearer and clearer. So in some ways, what happens for people out of beginning to experience the healing work of the sacred anatomy and the conscious intelligence of that sacred anatomy, they began to experience a greater capacity, a capacity for more than they thought was ever possible before. So I guess my invitation to you is to come and experience yourself as a bigger and more alive energy than you ever thought you were. Often, we empaths and sensitives, psychics and intuitives, we think of ourselves as small and beaten down. The truth is, what we're capable of is amazing and magical. And so I invite you to come to the magic of your own soul's truth, to come to the mystery of what you might be, and to release within yourself this unbelievably amazing power that your gifts and sensitivities have opened for you just a little. Come and experience a way to let go of the blocks and the stops that kept you and have kept you and could continue to keep you from really living your life. Don't just be an observer on the train. Be the conductor. Be the engineer. Be the designer of the entire train system. Come and enjoy this class with me.
All right. Well said. Thank you. Wow. Yeah, I like that. Design the whole train system. That's perfect. Well, we've got a question here from Terry. This is a follow-up to Chris's question about sending white light. Terry's asking, is it better to send love? During meditation, often the guru will ask to send love to people you may be angry with.
Well, there are wonderful practices, Ho'oponopono, mindfulness, and practices of releasing people from basically karmic attachments. All of those are lovely and fine, but you have to make sure that you're doing it from a very flat perspective. What I mean by that is you cannot have an agenda that you're fixing somebody. You cannot have a belief, really, that you are what's needed in that person's life and that your special magic is going to somehow fix them so they will now behave correctly. Do you hear how much judgment is in that? It's so important when we're being with people. We truly want to release, to first begin with, I respect you. And I respect you from where I am. I simply see you where you are. And I allow that you are there. I don't have an agenda. Even love can be quite a heavy agenda. So really just being with people in a state of mindful compassion, it's quite different than sending love. So love, boy, I used to tell my students years ago, and I don't do that anymore, but I used to say, please don't love me. Because there was so much baggage that people carried, especially from student to teacher or, husband to wife. It's so complicated. Love is complicated. Not bad, just complicated. And if you send mindful compassion, it's got a little bit less charge. And it allows you to be essentially a witness to their autonomy and their sovereignty, which is the first step to releasing and forgiving.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
On a completely different topic, we've got a question here from Lee, who says, when I hear people describe accidents or injuries, I can feel a zap like energy in my body. So watching gun violence or even a fire on TV that burns a house or people, I can't handle it. How can I deal with this?
Well, dear Lee, it seems to me that you're a person who likes to take on the trauma probably instinctively. You're not doing this on purpose, and you're not doing it because you think you can fix it. It's a learned response. It's something you learned as a little tiny kid, probably in your parents' home, taking on their trauma, maybe so they'd stop fighting, maybe so they'd stop having difficulties, or so that things would quiet down. A lot of times, sensitives do this. They take on everything left, right, and center because they have an experience that if they take it on, it's not nearly as painful as if they really are in the presence of the violence, the presence of the anger, the presence of the hitting or the fire burning or the flooding. It is important to realize that you can be compassionate without being involved. Stop and think for a moment. What good does it do if you are breaking down in complete devastation when someone 2,000 miles away loses their home? What good is it doing your family and your life? And really, what good is it doing that person? Sending waves of sorrow across the country to them. Instead, stand in compassion. This is really and truly the stance of the warrior. The spiritual warrior is a compassionate person. And I invite you to step into that possibility instead of becoming a victim of other people's victimization. Sit in compassion. You can practice watching television in compassion and not taking on the trauma. Literally saying, that is yours, not mine. Drawing a boundary, drawing a distinction. And then again, you're exactly the kind of person I developed the edge practice for. So I just sound like a broken record, but that's the place to get it, at my website.
Okay, thanks. We've got a couple different people here who are asking about identifying the issue that they want to work with in the course. They're trying to figure out how do I figure out which one I want to work with? Is there something on the website? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just put a really nice little video together today, and it's going to be posted on the website as soon as possible. It'll be on the website of the Shift Network, and it's going to tell you, it's called Define Your Larger Issue. And I actually talk you through a PDF that's also there. So all that information is literally going out today to the Shift Network, and they're going to put it right up, and you'll get a chance to see it in hopefully a day or so.
Okay, great. And that's how the course starts out. That's module 1. Is that correct?
No, it's a pre-course prerequisite. Okay. So I'm encouraging people to watch this video and do a little bit of work on their own before they come in, so that we can really hit the ground running. And of course, we will tune in, we will hone that issue, and we will dial it in even more during the course of the first module.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's go to a question here from Edith, who wants to know what to do to clear or eliminate a tendency to worry, feel stress and anxiety.
Oh boy, this is one of my favorite topics, actually. Anxiety and stress, the stress of living in this modern culture where there's so much electromagnetic disturbance. The truth of the matter is anxiety is actually an electromagnetic field issue. It is not a disease. It is a product of living in a time when the electromagnetic pollution is unbelievable. So there are healing techniques that I teach and ways to deal with it that are extensive. I've made a life work of this. So you guys are asking me a lot of questions that when they come up, I think, oh, it'd be perfect for this procedure. And I'm not including every single one of those procedures in this class because it would have to last about 6 months. So, or maybe more, might even be a couple years. So the truth of the matter is the electromagnetic stuff is anxiety producing, and it's hugely important if you are electromagnetically sensitive and have anxiety to calm down the exposure that you have to electromagnetic pollution, to try to settle it down, and that's what I would urge you to do. Thank you for that.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Another anonymous question. Got a lot of those coming in. This one says, I've noticed that I'm perceptive to the moods and emotions of those I'm around. And as a result, I've noticed that I mold my way of being to suit their moods or emotions or wants. How can I continue to stay myself and not mold myself to others?
Spiritual practice is the thing that comes to mind immediately. I would urge you to continue deep spiritual practice, to expand on your spiritual practice. And if you are doing something that isn't working, to shift your spiritual practice. On my first class, Beyond Your Energy Body, that I taught at the Shift Network, there was a PDF about spiritual practice that I think I'm going to ask them to put up for this class as well. So the spiritual practice is like a really important part of being a sensitive. It's almost impossible to be a sensitive without a spiritual practice. And it is one of the best ways to begin to really own who you are.
All right. Thank you for that. I just looked at the clock and, oh my gosh, we're out of time. This has been such a fascinating hour. We could go on and on. I want to thank our viewers for all of your fantastic questions. Once again, Reclaim Your Empathic Power starts Wednesday, March 20th. And again, you can visit yourempathicpower.com to learn more and to register. So before we go, Desda, any final words?
I think that I am so heartened by all these great questions, and I clearly see that there's a great need for what I have to offer. And I am so, so happy to be here at the Shift Network. I want to thank Lisa Bonice and the folks at Share Wisdom who've done such a great job with our Skype. And then, of course, all the great team at the Shift Network, Stephen Dynan and his crew. Lana Holmes and Jenna Ricci and Lee. So wonderful. Everyone has been so helpful. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to step into your lives. So thank you so much for allowing me this afternoon. I hope we'll see you in the class. Register, please. It's going to be really great and really fun, but also deeply shifting. So I hope you will come and be with me.
All right. Wow. Wow. Thank you again, Desda. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you today. And once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great night, everyone.